You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're covering Massachusetts. So, Kenzie.
Yes, Lauren?
Let's get scary.
Wicked scary. No, that wasn't really, that was British.
The wicked part worked, though.
I'm going to go park my car.
And have it yard. We are also, this is like a scary state at night.
A scary state at night. I was trying to be like sexy voice and I can't go that low.
I was thinking of SpongeBob. Taking out the trash at night. Flipping a burger at night.
I'm going to like collect the compilation of SpongeBob.
Oh my God. I'm literally not kidding. I feel like we've been able to do a SpongeBob quote almost every single episode.
We did 2.
I know.
Before.
2? Count them. 2.
Marshmallows.
Literally, there's one for everything.
My kids would never understand that.
No, and that's so sad.
Like they knew SpongeBob. Like it's not like they didn't know. They knew all about him.
Right.
They knew the new SpongeBob.
Yeah, ew.
So I would say it and they'd be like, what? I actually said, there was a lot of things that I said. They'd be like, what? I'm like, nothing.
No.
I'll figure it out when you're older.
We say it a lot at work. A lot of SpongeBob at work.
Yeah.
And it's just fun because everyone knows SpongeBob.
Not everyone, because I'll say it in front of some of adults too. And
Some of adults.
And people will just look at me like, what? And I'm like, SpongeBob.
Okay, our age. Even though I have a couple coworkers who don't know SpongeBob.
Well, here's my thing. I also know, and you also know, that I had quite the affinity for SpongeBob.
Mm-hmm.
So I know SpongeBob.
I know SpongeBob.
Yeah. So that's kind of like what my excuse is. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I was obsessed. There's at one point where I said I was going to marry him. I was 10. So I'm allowed to have those dreams. Seemed like a stand-up guy. He was nice. Steady job.
Uh-huh. Own house.
Owned his own house.
Yeah.
Going back to school.
Uh-huh.
Could be silly. But also knew when it was time to be serious.
Did he,
and
though?
He was always there. Remember when Pearl went to prom?
Yeah.
And he like did the leg things so that he could be taller.
Stand-up guy.
Yeah.
And a tall man for you. We're recording late at night. And so there's creepy noises.
Question. So, I would like a prize because when I listened to this podcast prior to my attendance, I reviewed and rated you guys and gave it a 5-star review.
Do you want a sticker?
I would like a prize.
Okay. I'll send you a little something.
You're going to send me a fucking sticker that we already have.
So when we get back, when this episode goes out, we would have just gotten back from the concert.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're not going to be doing this and be able to give you a recap, so you're going to have to wait.
Next week to listen.
Next week is...
The next week that they hear us.
After this one.
Right, so next week.
I'm thinking of like what week we are specifically in.
Well, yeah, no, but if they want to hear the update, they're going to have to listen to next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we lock the back door?
You're the one who closed it.
No, it's locked. Safety first. Especially at nighttime when we're going to talk about creepy things. So.
That's true. Although, mine's not scary.
Mine's not serial killer scary.
Serial killers aren't scary to me.
People breaking into homes is scary, and those are usually serial killers.
Okay, let me rephrase. Serial killers and their stories aren't scary to me. Because to me, it's less so hearing about like, oh yeah, like I'm not interested in the murder part. I'm interested in the investigation.
Oh, interesting.
And solving a puzzle. And then like if they happen to talk about like the psychology behind it.
Ooh, Dad's my stuff.
Sure.
Dad's what I
like the part where they're like figuring things out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like even with the psychology, it's like, okay, because it's still tying pieces together.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about crime, so to speak, is not the crime itself. It's the figuring out.
Finding the crime.
Figuring out what happened. Solving a puzzle. I love a good puzzle. However, ghosts, there's no puzzle. You're just told this scary thing will happen.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's scary.
That's scary.
Very scary.
All right. Do we want to jump into Massachusetts?
Sure. Oh, no, I already said it. Okay. Shoo, sorry.
Huh?
I was about to repeat myself and tell you that I wanted a prize for giving a review.
Oh my God.
I remembered that I said it. You know what? You can't give me shit for this because we are purposely doing this at night, unsober.
We went to Costco today. We had so much fun at Costco, but we bought wine, and that's what we're drinking tonight.
If you follow us on social media, you definitely would have seen the video I posted on our Instagram story. And by the time you listen to this, it'll be 2 weeks too late.
Costco did a really good job of like, they had one sample, and Mackenzie and I took a bite of it. We're like, oh my God, we need this. They were like these chips, things.
Bagel chips.
Bagel chips. And so bacon chips.
I thought she said bacon. She said bagel.
And so we went over and we bought those. And then the other one had chicken nuggets. So we had chicken nuggets and bagel chips for dinner.
There was like a pretzel cheese combo.
Oh, that was good.
And then what else did we do? You had a pickle.
I had pickle.
I don't like pickles.
I love pickles. What else did we try? We had 2 chicken nuggets.
We did have 2 chicken nuggets.
All right, Massachusetts.
So people were settled in this area about 3,000 years ago.
That doesn't sound very long compared to some of the other places.
I was going to say, like, a lot of our Midwest ones are like 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. They have the lowest divorce rates among the United States. The first lighthouse in the U.S. was built in 1716, and it was in Boston Harbor Light Station.
That was the name of it.
Oh, it was the first zip code ever is in Massachusetts. Do you know the town?
Mm-mm.
Agawam.
I think it's Agawam. Well, I don't know. I think I said that name in my story too, actually.
Agawam.
In Massachusetts, everything is not how it should be pronounced.
And I think that's mostly because everyone was Irish and had an accent. I don't think that's exactly how you're supposed to pronounce these things. I don't think
so.
Everyone with their accents, that's
like Worcester. No.
There's
Worcester. It should be pronounced Worcester. But yes, that was the first ever zip code in Massachusetts.
Interesting because, okay, if that's the first ever zip code and Plymouth is like, isn't that like considered like the,
Yeah, doesn't mean that they got the first zip code.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. You would think that they would have, and they're really far apart.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that.
Why not?
Just because they settled there first doesn't mean that that would be the place that gets the first zip code.
But it was first.
Yeah, so. Delaware was the very first state.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
See? Messing things up. Well, this must have happened before it was a state, right? You don't know. I have so many questions. Both volleyball and basketball were invented in Massachusetts. The first Dunkin' Donuts opened in Quincy. 5 U.S. presidents are from Massachusetts. Let's do some Mass words.
Like Massachusetts words.
Yeah, no, I got that. Living room.
The parlor.
Okay, liquor store is a packy.
The package store, but it's called a packy.
Okay.
Which is not a discriminatory word.
Oh, yeah, because it's short. Yeah, it's not talking about a person, it's talking about a place. Traffic circle is a rotary, which is incorrect because that's like a telephone.
Joe calls it a rotary, and it
It's
is
wrong.
the weirdest thing. I'm like, can you not call it that? It's a traffic
wrong.
circle or a roundabout. You can have those 2 words, but it's not a rotary.
Correct. A rotary is like the thing on the
That's
phone.
the phone.
A water fountain is a bubbler.
The bubbler. Because they think that fountains are like fountains in a park. And okay, I'm not.
Midwest does that too, though, don't they?
I don't know. And I'm not generalizing all of Massachusetts people who might have these thoughts. I am generalizing what my husband has told me from his Massachusetts.
A common lexicon.
Lexicon.
There we go. It's probably a common lexicon because there's other places. I don't know if it's a New England thing, but I know that there's other places that instead of saying water fountain, will say bubbler. They might not say bubbler.
Bubbler. Because Joe says, he's like, well, a fountain automatically means that it has water in it. So that's what you see in the park. And he's like, so that's not a water fountain, that's a bubbler. No. And I'm like, no.
A fountain in the park is just a fountain.
He's
water
like,
fountain is one you drink.
Yep. We're on the same wavelength.
You could also have a soda fountain.
We're on the same wavelengths. We're the correct ones.
I agree. A couple of my friends and I, we were sitting and having lunch, and I don't even know how we started going on this conversation, but we were trying to think of all the different ways that people say things. And so we were like, okay, do you say, for example, do you say water fountain or do you say bubbler? Or like, do you say shopping cart or buggy?
Oh, yeah.
Do you say
cash register or till?
Right. Traffic light, stoplight. Or like things like that. And so we were going back and forth, like bathing suit, swimsuit. And so we were trying to figure out like what each of us would say most of the time. Some of it, like, we would agree, like, oh, I say this
Yeah.
mostly. And then
Or
there
like
was,
a sub. Like I call it a sub. They call it grinders up there.
what?
A grinder.
For a sub?
Mhm,
Like a
like-
sandwich?
Yeah, like a sub, a hoagie, like that kind of stuff. They call it a grinder. Mm-hmm.
That all made no sense.
No, it don't.
No way is nosa.
No, sir.
There's no R's in.
There's not. That's why it's Worcester,
Right?
not Worcester.
There you go. Just so everybody knows, Lauren and I will be pronouncing our R's in this episode.
Because we're from the South.
Well, from the deeps. Oh my God. Okay, so a friend of mine used to date this guy who's from Massachusetts. When they first started dating, we all went down to Virginia Beach. And we have some friends who like are kind of from the area, and like a little bit further out from Virginia Beach, like further west,
Mm-hmm.
is a little bit more country than the Virginia Beach area itself.
Right.
And so some of my friends have more pronounced Southern accents than I would say you and I have,
Mm-hmm.
also being from Virginia. And so we went to go meet up with her and her friends from her hometown. So they all had Southern accents. Fine. I didn't think anything of it. Just having a conversation.
Mhm.
Like he leans over to me and goes, I can't understand a word they're saying, and it is great. I could not stop laughing. And like he would say things like hashtag the South, but like the way he would say it with his Boston accent.
Oh, that's so funny.
I like can't do it, but it was so, oh my God, I died. Because I didn't even notice. Like I didn't even think about it.
Right.
And he's just like, I can't understand anything they're saying.
When Joe and I first started dating, his family was like, oh my God, you're dating a Southern girl?
Mm.
And Joe's like, no. Like, I think they were picturing me as like the Southern Belle. And I was like, that's definitely not me.
I remember when I found out that Virginia was technically the South and below the Mason-Dixon line, I was so upset.
Yes.
It was so
It's
sad.
like, I don't want to be associated with that.
Right? Like when I learned about like the Civil War and the side we took, I was like, really? Come on.
I mean, then you go a little bit south from
Yeah, it
Northern
doesn't take
Virginia.
far to go in Virginia.
It doesn't have, yeah, you don't have to go far to realize like, oh,
Probably
there we
about
go.
like 30 minutes.
Yep. Yeah.
In any direction.
Uh-huh. Pretty much.
North or south. West, east.
Not so much north.
Well, some places in Maryland.
Yeah, but that's not Virginia.
Anywho, the Boston Marathon has been held since 1897 and is the world's oldest annual foot race. Ooh, I will use that one for the Only In and do facts about the Boston Marathon.
Oh my goodness.
Get so inspired. I should start like marking these so I remember what
Yeah,
I
like
want
highlight
to
them or
do.
something.
The Boston Marathon, is that the one you have to qualify for?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Mhm.
it's like the really,
Yeah. Like intense one.
yeah. Okay. Cool. Just what I thought. Their state drink is the Cape Codder, which is pretty much a vodka cranberry.
That was one of our signature drinks at the wedding.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, that was Joe's because it was a Massachusetts drink.
Oh,
and
I
yeah, it was
had-
pretty much just a
I had
vodka
the other
cranberry.
one because it tasted like applesauce and it was so delicious.
That was mine.
Although I don't think they really put that much in it because I
No.
had 7 of those bad
I had a
boys.
lot of
And
them
I was
too.
like,
And I was like barely drunk.
yeah. Like
We-
like after 2 glasses of wine, I probably felt the same after 7 glasses at your wedding.
Yeah.
Like
People were drinking that like nonstop. Like everyone I talked to was like, oh, I had so many of these. Like we had so much alcohol left over because we were able to return everything that was unopened.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, a
There's no
bartender did not put a
way.
lot in here.
I saw him pour it once. I was like, bro,
Is that a drop in there?
it's not even a shot. And I knew that there wasn't a lot because I'm like, this tastes too good.
I mean, but even with that though, after our wedding, we went down to Massachusetts like the next year or whatever. So probably
Up.
like, so like last couple months ago, back in the winter. And Joe's grandma was like, can you make your wedding drink?
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay. So I did like the apple cider and all that stuff. And oh my God,
Was it so really good?
we had spiced rum. I used almost that entire thing throughout the night. It tasted just the same.
good.
But we were like, whoo,
we should have been.
dumping that stuff
Which,
in there.
Quite honestly, it's probably a good thing
I think so.
because all of us drank so many of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially like we're jumping around, we're dancing, so we're drinking more. Oh my God. Like, I'm kind of, glad. Blessing in disguise. as they
Yeah.
say.
And I needed you guys to help me take my dress off anyways. So that would have been really difficult if everyone was drunk.
Did I help you do that?
Did you? Yeah. Or did you not come over? Did you come over later? I know I had Joe, Juliana, and Tyler all behind me trying to take this off. And Tyler was like, I was like, how many people does it take? And I like did a video and he goes, and there were only like 3 of them. He goes, I don't know, like 7. It was so funny. But yeah, I was in that thing. Maybe you guys came over after we took it off.
We might have.
But yeah, it was like,
I think we went back and changed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Joe, Juliana, and Tyler were just taking off all the individual little things.
I helped bustle.
Yes, you did help bustle all throughout the night.
Yes. I am a beast with the safety pin.
A beast bustler.
A beast bustler. But even more with the safety pin, because I safety pin a bunch of people's stuff and I make it look immaculate.
You did.
Can't even see it. Anyway, there's a place called Ponyhenge in Lincoln. It is a home for retired rocking horses. One mysteriously appeared in 2010 and it has grown over the years. That is so sweet.
Wholesomely creepy. Like wholesome, but creepy. Because it's just like a field of just retired rocking horses.
See, I looked at that as so wholesome and lovely and just a place for toys to go that they're not abandoned, and you ruined it.
Jared once stayed at his friend's grandma's house, and the room he was in had a rocking chair, like a rocking horse. And so he turned it on its side so he couldn't rock. He was like, I didn't want to wake up in the middle of the night and see that thing rocking, so I turned it on its side.
See, when you don't watch scary movies on a regular basis, your mind isn't filled with these things. It's still filled with happiness and joy. So when you look at a toy, you don't see creepy. You see a child's plaything.
We see horror.
Yes.
It's a child's plaything. But yeah, he came home the next day. He's like, I never want to sleep there again.
Oy. Well, I think it'd be sweet. We don't need to go into my life story with... Remember when I cried at Toy Story 3?
Mm-hmm.
Sobbed at Toy Story 3. And my mom had to explain to everybody that being an only child, my only friends were my fucking toys. And I was like, I'm going to have to do that when I go to college. Oh my God, I'm going to leave all of them. They're going to be so sad.
When I was younger, I had my stuffed animal that I still have, like, it's in our bed at home. But I remember being, like, super young, like 10, maybe 9. And I was walking around the, like, it must have been like a Walmart or something with my dad. And all of a sudden I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do in college because I can't bring our guy. And I don't know why this was such a pivotal moment in my life. College was like still 8 years away at that point.
See, you know what's so much better about your story is that you were 10. I was in 10th grade.
Yeah, Kenzie.
That's when Toy Story 3 came out. I never really thought about it that hard until Toy Story 3 came out and that was the premise.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do that. Okay, we still have some more facts.
Yeah, we do.
Quite a bit. Okay. A pirate, Thomas Veely, lived in Dungeon Rock Cave, located in the Lynn Woods Reservation back in the 1600s. It is reported that he hid a large amount of loot somewhere in the rock formation. One day, a man started to excavate the cave because he believed that ghosts were directing him to rediscover the lost pirate treasure.
And there's nothing else about it, so I guess he didn't find the treasure.
In 2005, an actual time travelers convention was held at MIT. On May 5th at 10:25 p.m., over 300 people gathered here in hopes of making contact with time travelers. Why?
Because why not?
No, I know, but I wonder if there was like something specific about May 5th at 10:25 p.m.
Oh, I don't know. Because that is a very specific time. Maybe it's easy because it's like 5:05, 10:25.
I really am going to have to go back through here and like highlight the ones that I'm like, I have so many questions. A landing zone was set up that had milk and cookies ready.
Isn't that so cute? Like for them to come and have food when they got there. Why they chose milk and cookies, I don't know, but I just think that's so sweet. Who would want milk and cookies? Maybe it's like a comfort thing.
Me.
Well, if you have Lactaid, you'd be fine.
No, I don't like milk. Unless it's like mixed with something.
Oh, yeah, you don't.
So I would not be pleased if I came back and there was
You'd be happy about the cookies.
Yeah, but then I'd be thirsty.
Do you have any water?
If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of water. This event made the front page of the New York Times, but sadly in 2005, no contact was made. Do you think the time travelers who were coming back already knew that they were to come back, and they had already come back and exposed themselves, and it was a catastrophe? So the people who had gone back then went back to stop the people who were supposed to come back at that time, and that's why they never saw people.
I like it.
Did you really follow that?
I did. I mean, maybe.
I don't know if I did.
No, yeah, I followed it.
But yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, hopefully everybody else did too. I don't know.
It's always a red string episode here.
But MIT continues to publicize the time and location so that future time travelers will be aware and have the opportunity to attend.
I just think that's kind of cute.
Is it always the same time?
Yeah. Always the same date and always the same time. Because they're always going to advertise that. So it's always going to be that date and time.
So if you saw it and you came up with time traveling, you would then go back to that time?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't.
Well, but I would always find a May 5th at 10:25.
Oh, I'd be an asshole and go on like May 5th at 10:24.
Then people would be shocked. They'd be like, oh, they're early. You would be that asshole. Or you'd come at like, everyone sees like 10:25 and they get really depressed and like, damn. And then you'd come at 10:26 and be like, ha.
Those are both viable options. Be like, got you suckers up here.
I knew it.
I always like to make an entrance.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Spider Gate Cemetery in Leicester.
That's probably pronounced wrong because it's Massachusetts.
Well,
We are pronouncing it how it should be.
correct. Although,
That's probably like Worcester.
so it'd be Leicester.
See, you would think, but Worcester is spelled Worcester, but it's pronounced Worcester. That's why I pronounce it as Worcester. And Joe doesn't like it, and I say, then spell it correctly.
So then it would be Leicester.
Right, exactly.
Probably like Leicester. Because if it's, wait, what was it? Worcester?
Worcester. So this would be Leicester.
Well, wherever Spider Gate Cemetery is, it's apparently a gateway to hell.
Surprise, surprise.
It is said that the center of the cemetery was used for satanic worship, and from that, the gateway was formed. So they opened the portal. I see.
Yeah.
The town of Dogtown is supposedly cursed. Dogtown, interesting name.
Mm-hmm.
It is said that it was established in 1693, but was only inhabited by witches and feral dogs. I bet the witches and dogs were friends.
They probably were.
Neighboring towns say that Thomasine, whatever, Tammy, younger, was the queen of witches, and she cursed anyone who got too close to the town. The town has since been abandoned. It is now surrounded by rocks bearing peculiar inscriptions.
When you said Tammy Younger was the queen of witches and she cursed anyone who got too close to the town, it sounded like, you know, in Hocus Pocus, when the lady's telling like the Halloween story about the Sanderson sisters.
Yeah.
It sounded like that.
Yeah.
Like, and got too close to the town.
He's my drama voice. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw peculiar, I almost said pelican. So Steve Carell, did I say that right? Was born in Concord and was raised in Acton. I thought Concord was in...
There's a Concord, Massachusetts.
There's too many towns
that are the same.
They're the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely a state capital named Concord.
What state?
I don't know. Connecticut?
Mm-mm.
No, that's Hartford.
Yeah.
Concord, I thought was something.
There's Concord grapes. New Hampshire.
Okay. See?
Close enough, in the same area.
Yeah. Amy Poehler and John Krasinski. Thank you. Were born in Newton. Did you ever see that? I think it was a Super Bowl commercial, and it was him and Jimmy Fallon. I don't know if there was somebody else in it, but like one of them pulls up into a parking spot and the other one is shouting out at him, and they are obviously emphasizing the accent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And Conan O'Brien was born in Brookline.
At work the other day, I don't know, two of our coworkers were arguing which was better, New York or Philly. And then it got into this whole thing. But then we started naming like famous people from each state.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I got y'all. And I was like, let me tell you some famous people from some state.
Do you remember them all?
No.
Okay.
But I remembered some. I almost got Bill Nye wrong because he was from DC, right? I was like, Bill Nye was from Virginia. And I was like, oh no, he was from DC.
It feels the same.
It does feel the same.
You just cross a bridge.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Massachusetts.
At least the facts.
At least the facts.
What's shaking, bacon? Look, that's the next one on here.
That was your really unique one.
No, it wasn't really unique, but there's nothing else on here that's like, oh, here we go. Okay, I take it back. Ready?
Oh, yeah. Ready.
What's the deal, Batmobile? Oh. That was my best one.
All right.
Yeah, let's get spooky so I stop laughing.
Okay. The Hoosac Tunnel is a 10-mile railway that goes through the Hoosac mountain range in western Massachusetts. It connects the towns of North Adams, Massachusetts to Florida, Massachusetts.
Original.
When I was first looking through the research, I was like, oh my God, this place goes all the way from Massachusetts to Florida. Until I realized. The construction of this railway took quite a while. Between 1851 and 1875, so 24 years, hundreds of men poured blood, sweat, and tears into this railroad, with the average rate of progress being only about 2 feet or 0.6 meters a day.
2 feet?
Uh-huh. That's why it took 24 freaking years. When it
For a railroad, they only could put 2 feet at a time?
Well, they're going legit through a mountain.
Oh, sorry. I missed that part.
Oh, yeah. They're going through a mountain. So
Yeah.
busting that rock and stuff. So when it was finally done in 1875, it was the second longest tunnel in the world at 4.75 miles or 7.64 kilometers. It was right behind the 8.5 mile or 13.7 kilometer Mount Cenis tunnel that runs through the French Alps.
Oh, okay.
French, yes.
I was like, those are here.
Oh my gosh. In 1975, it earned...
The gears are slower than normal today, okay?
The wine does it to you. And the late night.
It's 11:30.
I know.
We still got to try on clothes. Got to tie your shirts.
Jesus. I remember at 3 o'clock, we're like, damn, we're making good time.
No, we were doing so well. And then we got home and just gave up.
We're too productive. In 1975, it actually earned a spot on the list of historic civil engineering landmarks.
Oh.
Those years of construction were so dangerous and deadly, with over 200 men dying, that it was given the nickname the Bloody Pit.
Oh, that's
So,
not good.
Like I said, the construction of the tunnels began in 1851. During this time, the main tools and equipment being used to clear the rock were black powder, picks, and shovels. It was used to chip away the rocks of the mountains because they had to legit go through the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Nitroglycerin, an explosive, was introduced to America in 1865, and that same year it began being used in the tunnels. The Hoosac Tunnel was actually the first construction project to use nitroglycerin. And this project was using so much that a factory had to be built nearby one of the openings to produce it for the project so it could be close by and ready to be used.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And this claim can't be confirmed, but one source said that though the factory is long gone, it's been shut down for years, there are still some barrels of the nitroglycerin that are lost somewhere in the Berkshire woods, which is near where this mountain is.
The explodey stuff.
Yeah, the super explodey stuff.
That's not good.
Super safe.
Yeah.
So back to the nitroglycerin. It was new at the time, like I mentioned. So many of those handling
What is that
it,
again?
it's like explosives. You can kind of set it up and have it explode.
Is it like
TNT sort of.
So it's not like C4.
I don't know.
Like the the brick thingy?
Oh, I don't think it's that.
It's not that.
I don't think so.
It's more like is it a
I don't know.
Okay. It's relevant. Keep going.
Make
shit blow up.
I had other things to worry about other than what nitroglycerin was.
I was going to say I get bogged down in some of the unnecessary details.
Glycerin. It just comes in
it just goes boom.
Oh, it looks like it's a liquid.
That's what I was wondering.
Apparently you can eat it.
You can eat it?
Yeah, it's showing videos of nitroglycerin tablets and people I don't know. We're just going to get off this website and we're just going to go back to what's happening here.
Anyway, shit was being blown up on a mountain.
Yes. So those handling it didn't really know the do's and don'ts of it yet and didn't know how to handle it safely. So there were a lot of injuries and lives lost by this stuff being set off prematurely.
Mm.
Workers were either blown apart if they were in the vicinity of the exploding, or they could be as unlucky as being buried under rocks that came down from the explosion. John Velser, the foreman of the nitroglycerin factory, which is actually, quote, blown to atoms, as one newspaper put it, after 800 pounds of the stuff erupted in December of 1870. The explosion was so intense that not a single trace of Velser was ever found. Yeah.
Holy
So, like,
shit.
it's really not good stuff, but I mean, it does the job for clearing a mountain. So like I said, most of the deaths that occurred in this tunnel were from accidents, fires, explosions, drownings, because it was going through a mountain.
Drowning.
We'll get to that. Can't give away everything right now.
Sometimes you throw out this detail. Like, wait. Like, shh, not yet.
Keep you on your toes.
So drowning in a mountain. Got it.
Yes. So many of those were accidents. But there was one death that may not have been an accident.
Mm.
One afternoon, March 20th, 1865, explosive experts Ned Brinkman, Billy Nash, and Ringo Kelly set up the nitroglycerin, getting it all ready.
A hodgepodge of some Beatles.
I know. I know. So they set up the nitroglycerin and were getting it all ready to clear some rocks. They set it and started running towards their safety bunker, a bunker that was designed to keep them safe during an explosion. Safety bunker. But Brinkman and Nash never made it. Kelly had somehow accidentally set off the charge prematurely, causing the explosion to go off before Brinkman and Nash were safe. Rocks came crashing down on the two men, burying them under tons of rock.
Lauren.
What?
There's a guy in my story, and his last name is also Kelly.
Oh. In the 1800s?
No.
Oh. No.
They just have the same last name.
Wild.
I thought so.
Hey, that's our comparison. But not long after that incident, Kelly also disappeared. Almost exactly a year later, on March 30th, 1866, Kelly's body was found 2 miles inside of the tunnel at the exact same spot where Brinkman and Nash had died. But Kelly wasn't found under rocks or anything like that. No, he had been strangled. The police were called with
The ghosts of the men came back and strangled him.
You might be onto something. So the police were called and Deputy Sheriff Charles F. Gibson was leading the investigation. It was estimated that Kelly's time of death had been between midnight and 3:30 a.m. the day that he was found.
How long after... Okay, wait, sorry. How long was Kelly found after the two other guys died?
A year.
Okay.
Yeah, about a year.
Okay.
So he went missing just a couple days after they died. And then he wasn't found until a year later. So he was missing for a whole year.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I missed that part too.
Yeah, so he was found a whole year later. The investigation continued, but there were no suspects. No suspects came up, leading to the murder never being solved. The workers, though, had their own idea of what had happened to Kelly.
I'm sure they knew all the tea.
They didn't just think, they knew that the vengeful spirits of Brinkman and Nash had murdered Kelly. The workers started to fear that the tunnel was haunted, and they all started to become hesitant and even...
Tunnel. Secret tunnel.
What was that from?
A TikTok sound.
Oh, I've heard that before.
I mean, a TikTok sound that came from something.
Yeah, it had to come from something, because if I've heard it, because I'm not on TikTok, so I heard it from somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know that part.
Uh.
I'm sure whoever knows that part, like, you know, if it was like a Vine or a YouTube, is going to be like, oh my God. But I just know from TikTok.
Where we know everything from.
Right.
So
no, you don't. You don't have a TikTok.
I see it 2 weeks later on Facebook. I'll send something to Kenzie that I think is like so cool that I think she would love. And I sent it. She's like, yeah, I saw that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, sorry.
And then I have to like awkwardly text her like 5 text messages of all these TikToks I want to send her. Because I can't just send it to her. The message.
So, did you just say SMH?
No, I said in a message.
Oh, I thought you said SMH. I was like, Mackenzie.
I whispered it, so you only hear the shh.
Oh. So the workers, they started to feel that the tunnel was haunted, and they all started to become hesitant and even uneasy when entering. It got so bad that some workers would even give up a whole day's worth of pay to not even have to enter the tunnels.
See, I'm telling you, that's when you know.
Right.
If these manly men blowing shit up, knocking down rocks are like,
Mm-hmm.
bad vibes.
Exactly.
And then also give up pay, which you know is already trash.
Yeah, in the 1800s especially.
Out of all the places that we've talked about, I'm not going to that tunnel.
No, I don't want to go to this tunnel.
Okay, cool.
So after this incident in September, Paul Travers came to tour the tunnel with Mr. Dunn, one of the tunnel's managers. Travers was a mechanical engineer who had been employed to help with the tunnel project. He had been a highly respected cavalry officer in the Union Army, so very respectable, a guy who would tell the truth, who was to be believed. After his tour of the tunnels on September 8th, 1868, he wrote a letter to his sister who lived in Connecticut. The letter wrote, quote, "The men constantly complain of hearing a man's voice carry out an agony and refuse to enter the great shaft after nightfall. Mr. Dunn has reassured them time and time again that the strange sound is nothing more than the wild winds sweeping down off the mountainside. Our work has slowed to the point where Mr. Dunn asked me to help him conduct an investigation into the matter. Last night, Mr. Dunn and I entered the..."
I need to put on socks because I feel like something's going to attack my feet.
Last night, you don't get to yet. I have to finish this quote. Last night, Mr. Dunn and I entered the Great Tunnel at exactly 9 p.m. We traveled about 2 miles into the shaft and then stopped to listen. As we stood there in the cold silence, we both heard what truly sounded like a man groaning out in pain. As you know, I have heard the same sound many times during the war. Yet when we turned up the wicks of our lamps, there were no other human beings in the shaft except Mr. Dunn and myself. I'll admit I haven't been this frightened since Shiloh, which I think is a war. Mr. Dunn agreed that it wasn't the wind we heard. Perhaps Nasher Brinkman, I wonder? And this was just a month before a truly horrible disaster would occur.
I need to go get socks.
Oh my God, you seriously? Go get your socks, leave the safety of our bunker, little tent thing.
And give me your socks.
No, because my feet might get cold later.
I just need something.
You can go.
My feet are going to get like eaten by something.
I know, me too.
See under this table. Okay, go ahead.
We good? Feet in a protected position?
For the most part.
Okay. The most chilling and horrifying incident that occurred was the central shaft accident. So a little about the central shaft first. This part of the tunnel marks more or less the middle of the tunnel.
What? Say it again.
This part of the tunnel, so the central shaft, more or less marks the middle of the tunnel.
Okay.
Central shaft. This part of the tunnel has a chimney that allows exhaust to escape.
See, this is what happens. Is that everything is funny. It's supposed to be scary.
We're not to the scary part yet.
I don't know, that last story you told was scary.
Oh, they get scary. Ooh. Sometimes the line gives you the shivers.
It was like, okay, one's kicking. Like, let's go.
I did it because it gave me a little shivers. Okay, so this part of the tunnel has a chimney that allows exhaust to escape and allows ventilation into the tunnel. This chimney is like really big though. It goes 1,000 feet straight up. So the chimney is really just a vertical chimney.
They're not 1,000 feet.
Into the mountain?
Oh, right. They're going in a mountain. I was going to say underground.
No. They're not underground. They're in a mountain.
In a mountain. But are they 1,000 feet from the surface?
I'm not really sure because at the time of this accident, it wasn't fully built yet.
And it still went up 1,000 feet?
After it was fully built, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So because this was like kind of part in the middle of the tunnel, it would allow workers to essentially get dropped right in the middle for easier access to this portion of the tunnel without having to walk from the very beginning all the way to where they were now.
So it was like a little slide?
No, it was like, I'll explain.
Okay.
So they would be hoisted up and down as well as rock and such in large copper buckets. So the buckets were attached to crossbars of wood, which prevented it from swinging back and forth. So they would get into the bucket and be lowered down.
Like a pulley system.
Yeah. Or like a really bad elevator.
Terrible elevator.
Awful.
Horrendous.
A steam engine would be used to actually hoist the bucket up and down. So it was able to travel the distance of, when completed, 1,030 feet in just about 2 minutes.
A fast elevator.
I mean, not awful.
Honestly, when I hear things like 1,000, I'm probably assuming it's a lot bigger than it might have been.
I think 1,000 is kind of big, though, because I looked up how tall the Space Needle is, and that's 605 feet.
Yeah, that's like a speed demon going, like.
Actually, thinking about that is pretty fast because, okay, I'm going to Seattle, and we're going to go to the Space Needle, and I wanted to know how long I would be in the elevator for. It takes 43 seconds. I counted. Well, I didn't count. I read an article. And so thinking about like this is almost double, a little less than double, and it takes 2 minutes. So that's actually pretty fast.
And they're out in the open, so it's like
Just like that. Yeah.
go down.
So the whole condition with the buckets was described as, quote, ride to and from this work, sometimes sitting in the bucket and sometimes standing on its rim or on the crossbars and holding onto the cables. Most of those at the central shaft were Cornish miners, and their lifelong experience in such holes in the ground has made them reckless of danger. The fatal accidents that frequently occur among them have no effect to make them more cautious. When the whistle blows for the shift of hands, every man at the bottom wants to come up in the first bucket, and generally the dozen of them do all come up at once, 2 or 3 sitting in the bucket, and the rest standing on the brim and the crossbars and clinging fast. If a man can get 1 foot on the crossbar and 1 hand on the cable, he had much rather come up that way than wait 3 minutes for the bucket to return for him.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's some desperate shit.
Yeah, they just want to be out of there. N.H. Eagleston wrote back in March of 1882 about the feeling of the descent into the central shaft. Thank you. He said, at every descent of the bucket, it seemed as though those in it were being dashed down the dark pit to almost certain destruction. Speed was necessary, and the machinery was so arranged that the descent of over 1,000 feet was made in a little more than a minute. The sensations experienced by those who descended the shaft were particular. First, there was a sensation of rapid, helpless falling through space in the darkness. Then, as the speed was at last abruptly arrested, it seemed for a moment as though the motion had been reversed and one was being so rapidly elevated to the surface again. That sounds awful.
It's like what I imagine it's like on the drop zone.
Yes.
Like
that's exactly what it sounds like. They just drop and then like it catches them and then they like kind of down.
The difference is at least they know that they're going. It's not like someone trying to fuck with them and be like, when's it gonna drop?
Oh.
Like those are like my 2 biggest fears. Suspense and heights.
So drop zone is just like not for you.
Don't even touch it. I won't even hold your stuff while you go on it. And I won't even watch you. I won't do anything. I will walk past and pretend that drop zone is not there.
So yeah, you wouldn't do really well in these like brass buckets.
No, but I think I would do better than drop zone because there would be, you could take out the factor of the shock value of like, when am I going to drop? So there's,
because you know.
Right. So I won't be startled. I'll just be
dropped into the darkness.
Yeah. So I'll have to deal with 1 fear, not 2. So
you're still up high.
Right.
Oh, the fear.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Okay.
So I wouldn't do well. I would just do better.
I'm not saying I would thrive. I would just survive.
I would just do my best.
Okay, so the tragedy in this tunnel occurred on either October 17th, 1867 or 1868. I read conflicting dates everywhere. So just a year difference, but I read these 2 dates everywhere. I couldn't find just one of them. So at this point in the building of the tunnel, the chimney was only about It was only about 538 feet deep, so half of what it would eventually be. It was 538 feet deep at this point.
Okay, so we went back in time a little bit.
Yeah. So we're before it like finished.
Sorry, it takes my brain a second to catch up.
I just wanted to like explain it a little bit.
Yes.
So they still use the same bucket technique though to get down the chimney. So that's still big bucket. Somehow fuses from a naphtha-fueled lamp escaped the lamp and somehow ignited, which caused an explosion. The explosion caused tools, equipment, supplies, and the bucket hoist to rain down on the 13 men who were working at the bottom of the unfinished chimney.
So when an elevator is stuck, it can fall.
This is not an elevator.
Yeah, but isn't it like the same kind of idea?
No.
With the little pulleys?
No.
Well, what the fuck pulls up an elevator?
Advanced pulleys and advanced cables. This is a train that has pulleys on it. No.
Like,
you know how much I hate elevators, and I'm still saying it's not the same. So the machinery came down next, followed by the whole hoist house itself. So it was like a whole building that kind of hoisted it up. The pumps that pumped water out and oxygen in were also destroyed, so there was water going in and out, leaving the 13 men stranded down there, losing oxygen as the shaft filled with water. The drowning death I talked about.
There it is. Okay.
Well, potentially.
Right.
Those up at the surface had to wait to begin rescue efforts as the smoke was too thick to see anything. But when the smoke finally cleared around 3 a.m., they began right away. A man named Mallory was lowered into the tunnel through the chimney by a bucket and rope to search for any survivors.
But not the system that they had
No, because it all broke
and fell.
with the fire.
Oh, there was a fire.
Yeah, the thing exploded.
Right, because didn't
The
something...
lamp exploded.
Oh,
An
I
explosion usually
missed that
causes
part.
fire.
I heard, like, I don't know what I heard, but the way it sounded to me in my head and the way I processed it was like the police, like,
Oh,
something
no.
sparked.
There was that lamp that I said. That fumes came out of the lamp, ignited, caused fire.
Got it. Okay.
So with Mallory, he brought down with him 3 oil lamps. So he's in the bucket. The men are lowering him down. He has lamps to go
Guess I don't
see.
really have any other option.
Mm-mm. So he wasn't down there for too long when he was pulled back up to the surface. 2 of his oil lamps were out, and the third one was barely hanging on. Mallory himself was almost unconscious from the fumes down below. He looked around, and that's why 2 of his things went out because of the fumes.
Oh, yeah.
He looked around at the worried faces of the other men and said only 2 words, "No hope," before passing out. The other workers came to the realization that nobody had survived the accident. And to make matters worse, as the tunnel flooded, some of the bodies of the miners started coming up to the surface.
Oh, no.
Months passed, and they were finally able to finish excavating the shaft. This is when they made a grisly discovery. They found a raft, proving that some of the workers had actually survived for some time down there, making the raft to try to deal with the flooding.
Oh, my God.
Oh, I know.
Oh.
They had ultimately suffered on the vapors of the deadly gas, or more likely died from lack of oxygen as the fire took it all. Uh-huh. So that's why when Mallory came up to the top, he was like out of oxygen because of the lack of oxygen down there, and why his flames were out because flames need oxygen to go.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. I like cannot even imagine.
Oh, that sounds...
Like I can't even imagine. No, I can't do it.
Because there's like that sense of hope that if you've made it that long that you've started to build something to try to get you out of there.
Mm-hmm. And you're like, help is coming, you know? But no help came. Because they all thought that the men were dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, eventually.
Yeah. Glenn Droham, a correspondent of the North Adams Transcript, wrote, quote, "During the time the miners were missing, villagers told strange tales of vague shapes and muffled wails near the water-filled pit."
So it's the town that's next to the thing.
Yeah, like the ones that are near the tunnel. Workmen claimed to see the lost miners carrying picks and shovels through a shroud of mist and snow at the mountaintop. The ghost apparitions would appear briefly, then vanish, leaving no footprints in the snow, giving no answers to the miners' calls. But as soon as the raft-bound miners were found and given a decent burial, the visitation ceased.
Okay. Well, that seems like they found some peace.
People thought that with the proper burial and the visitations being done that all the sounds would end, but that didn't stop the eerie wailing and moaning that would still be heard from deep within the tunnels.
It's definitely not the wind.
No.
In the tunnel, though?
No.
You sure?
Yes. And I will go into why. So in 1872, it had been 4 years since the accident, and a man named Dr. Clifford J. Owens visited the tunnel with James R. McKinstry, a drilling operations superintendent. Owens wrote about his experience, which soon appeared in a Michigan newspaper. So this is a little long, but it gives a really good detail of what him and McKinstry did. He wrote,
close to Mackenzie, but
I know. I know. He wrote, quote, "On the night of June 25th, 1872, James McKinstry and I entered the great excavation at precisely 11:30 p.m.
Question.
Yes.
Was the tunnel finished at this point?
I don't think so. No. It finished in 1875, and this is 1872.
So it's close.
It's very close,
Okay.
yeah. And so McKinstry is a drilling operations superintendent, so I guess they're like, you know.
Inspection.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
So they enter at precisely 11:30. We had traveled about 2 full miles into the shaft when we finally halted to rest. Except for the dim, smoky light cast by our lamps, the place was as cold and dark as a tomb. James and I stood there talking for a minute or two, and were just about to turn back when suddenly I heard a strange, mournful sound. It was just as if someone or something were suffering great pain. The next thing I saw was a dim light coming along the tunnel from a westerly direction. At first, I believed it was probably a workman with a lantern. Yet, as the light grew closer, it took on a strange blue color and appeared to change shape almost into the form of a human being without a head. The light seemed to be floating along about a foot or two above the tunnel floor. In the next instant, it felt as if the temperature had suddenly dropped and a cold, icy chill ran up and down my spine. The headless form came so close that I could have reached out and touched it, but I was too terrified to move. For what seemed like an eternity, McKinstry and I stood there gaping at the headless thing like 2 wooden Indians. The blue light remained motionless for a few seconds as if it were actually looking us over, then floated off towards the east end of the shaft and vanished into thin air. I'm above all the realist, he continued, nor am I prone to repeating gossip and wild tales that defy a reasonable explanation. However, in all truth, I cannot deny what James McKinstry and I witnessed with our own eyes. Then just 2 years after that, on October 16th, 1874, a local hunter named Frank Webster went missing. A search was launched, and just 3 days after he went missing, a search party out looking for him actually made a discovery. The search party saw Frank stumbling along the banks of the Deerfield River in a state of shock. When the search party got to him and started asking him what happened, he told them that he had heard strange voices who were ordering him to go into the Hoosac Tunnel. He listened and he went inside. But once inside, he saw ghostly figures wandering around. He said all of a sudden something grabbed his rifle from his hands and beat him over the head with it. And when he was found, Frank no longer had his rifle with him, and he had no memory of even leaving the tunnel in the first place. He also had abrasions and bruises that would be consistent with the beating. So it's like drawing people in at times.
This is not a great place.
That same year in the fall, 2 hunters, Greg Jeffries and Ian Bolt, were passing by the tunnel. As they passed by, they could hear the moans of a man inside, so very consistent with what everyone's hearing. They immediately thought that someone was hurt, so they ventured in. They did know the tunnels were haunted, but still went to check on this hurt man anyways. I mean, they think someone's hurt in there, and they're being like good men going to like check on this person. As they started walking deeper into the tunnels, they continued to hear the moans, so Bolt called out, "Hello, are you badly hurt?" The cries stopped at that moment, so Bolt continued asking questions, yelling out, "I said, hello there. Tell us where you are so we can help." This is when the 2 men started to hear heavy footsteps approaching them.
No.
They waited and held their lanterns up high for whoever was coming out of the darkness. This is when they saw a light coming down the tunnel, swaying gently. It came all the way to the edge of where the light of their lanterns could shine, and they were just able to make out a 6-foot-tall figure. It was at that horrific moment that the 2 men realized that the figure was covered in blood.
No!
And had no head.
No!
The 2 men didn't even say a word. They just turned and booked it out of the tunnel.
That's the first smart thing they've done this whole time.
This headless miner has become one of the best-known ghosts of the tunnels.
Ah!
And that was finally the year that the tunnel was completed and the track was laid. So it was finished in 1875. This is 1874. So the track's laid. It's good to go. So then the first train traveled through the tunnel on February 9th, 1875 with 125 people on board.
Uh-oh.
There's nothing bad with this.
Okay.
So North Adams, where the tunnel is, had become, quote, the western gateway to much of New England. And you'd think that with the completion of the tunnels, scary stories and tales would end, but that is not the case.
No,
they continue to
not.
circulate. That fall, a fire tender named Marlin Mulvaney was driving a wagon load of firewood into the tunnel late one night because he had to deliver the firewood for what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Without warning, he whipped his horses around, hit them across their flanks to get them to run, and tore out of the tunnel. A few days later, his wagon and his horses were found 3 miles from the tunnel in the woods. But Mulvaney wasn't there. He was never seen or heard from again.
Bro.
Mm-hmm. And then we skip pretty far ahead until 1958.
Okay.
So we're now in February of 1958. So there hadn't been many reports until that date.
And is this was only a train track, correct?
Yeah, like a train tunnel.
Okay.
So it was lunch service at the Brid Lunch Diner in Pittsfield. An eastbound train flew by on the tracks, so fast, in fact, that the nearby diner felt themselves shake.
Oh, damn.
John Quirk, the owner, reported this train to Boston and Maine officials, concerned with how fast it had been traveling. But railroad officials were not amused. They told Quirk that he couldn't have possibly seen a train on these tracks, especially not the steam locomotive that he had reported seeing. They told him that no train had run on these tracks that day. Further, they told him that a steam locomotive hadn't been used on any Pittsfield lane in several years. And it was 1958 at this point, so steam locomotives kind of weren't really a thing anymore.
Right.
But the reports from patrons and others seeing this phantom train traveling between the Union Street Depot and the North Street Bridge, always speeding its way to Boston, did not stop. Bridge Lunch employees and customers once again saw this train and felt it fly by in March of 1958. This time, instead of flying by at lunchtime, it passed at 6:30 a.m. Quirk was eventually interviewed about his experience 16 years later by the Eagle. He said, quote, "We saw it, regardless of what anyone else tries to tell us.
Yeah.
It consisted of 5 or 6 coaches. I can describe the locomotive down to the last bolt. It was so clear and plain that I was even able to see the coal in the tender, and my customer saw it just as plainly as I did."
No?
So there's a ghost train going through here as well.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
In 1973, a man named Bernard Hestaba wanted to take an adventure. And what other way to take an adventure than to explore the Hoosac tunnels?
I can think of
99 other things.
Millions of other things that you could do except go in that tunnel.
So he did anyways.
Of course.
He entered via the North Adams side, but he never came out. He wasn't found in the tunnel. He wasn't found outside of the tunnel. He just wasn't found at all. Then in 1976, a parapsychologist in Agawam, Massachusetts, decided to take a little visit to the tunnel. The first town with a zip code. She claimed to see a figure of a man wearing old-fashioned work clothes who appeared to be within a glowing white light, which, again, very similar to what other people are saying. In 1977, another man, Joseph Impoko, a former employee of the Boston and Maine Railroad, definitely believes that there is something to these tunnels. He says that he started working in the tunnels when he was only 18 and that the ghosts in these tunnels ended up saving his life twice.
Okay. I can get on board with this story.
Yes, this one's good. This one's good. He told the Berkshire Sampler on October 30th, 1977, that one day his job was to chip ice from the tracks. As he was working, chipping ice, minding his own business, he heard a voice say, "Run, Joe, run." He turned around towards the voice, and sure enough, the number 60 train was heading straight towards him. He obviously jumped back and missed being hit. But when he looked around at who had warned him, he said no one was there.
Oh.
He said that he had heard the voice even before he had heard the train.
Oh, wow.
He did remember back, and he said that he does remember seeing a man with a torch pass by and wave before he heard the voice. Joe said that it seemed like no one else noticed or acknowledged this man, though, that he kind of was the only one seeing it. Then just 6 weeks after that, still icy, he was using a crowbar to free some freight trains that had been stuck on the track. As he was working, again, he heard someone shout, "Joe, Joe, drop it, Joe." Joe immediately let go of the crowbar, and at that instant, the bar went flying into the tunnel wall. It had been struck by 11,000 volts of electricity from a short-circuited overhead power line. Had he been holding it, he would have died.
Oh my God.
Yes, but there have been times when maybe the voices weren't as helpful. He was working, and while removing trees from the tunnel entrance, he was nearly crushed by a huge oak tree that started to fall in his direction. He was able to outrun the tree, but the whole time, he was hearing a strange, unearthly laugh. He said that he knows that the laugh wasn't from one of his crew members.
I don't like this story anymore.
Joe has since quit. Good, you've had 3 near-death experiences. Maybe don't work there anymore. But he says that every year he comes back to the tunnel to thank the ghosts who have saved his life.
Okay.
He says that he has this
Approved.
feeling that if he doesn't go to say thank you, then tragedy will befall him.
Ooh.
He says he feels this way because in 1977 he stayed home. He didn't go visit. He had stayed home because his wife was sick and wanted him to stay with her. Well, later that year, his wife passed away.
No.
I know. Isn't that so sad?
That's kind of fucked up.
So he believes her death was connected with his failure to visit the tunnel. Others have reported that they have also been given warnings, seemingly from no one in the tunnel, that also have saved them from a terrible and possibly deadly accident. So we have good ghosts, and then we have not so good. A philosophy professor at North Adams State College, Allie Almaker, visited the tunnels in 1840. Nope. In 1940. Nope. In 1984. Almaker is also a part-time ghost hunter. So they wrote in the Berkshire Week, it's like a newspaper, quote, "I have been in the tunnel only once, accompanied by a railroad official, and can attest to the claim that it is an eerie place. I had the uncomfortable feeling that someone was walking closely behind me in the darkness and would tap me on the shoulder, or worse, pull me into some unknown and unspeakable horror at any moment."
How far, how long's the tunnel again?
4.75 miles.
Oh, so it's long.
It's a long tunnel.
That's long.
Allmaker also told a story of some college students who had ventured into the tunnel with a tape recorder. They turned it on and left. When they returned to get their tape recorder, the tape recorder was fine, nothing was messed up, and when they listened back to it, and then they listened back to what they had recorded, it sounded like muffled human voices were talking deep in this tunnel. Then in 1994, a man named Kevin from Boston, great year. Kevin from Boston said that while he was in the old control room opposite the ventilation shaft, he heard whispering and saw a shape that was about 3 feet tall and completely black. It stood just outside of his flashlight beam. He said it always stood right outside of the beam and gave Kevin no indication that it was friendly. So it just gave off this very malevolent vibe. So I mentioned how
to get out of this tunnel.
And we're in a tunnel.
I feel like I'm in a tunnel and I can't wait to get out.
So I mentioned how the tunnel was operational, and over the years, many updates came to the tunnel. In 1911, electricity was brought in to power a fan that sat atop the central shaft to help pull the train's fumes out. Then the tunnel went electric, where trains would have to stop at the beginning of the tunnel, be connected to cables, and then those electric cables will pull the train through, so
Okay.
helping eliminate the fumes.
Okay.
Then in 1946, a double fan system was installed at the top of the central shaft, which was actually the same ones that are being used today.
Okay.
So double fans kind of clearing out the tunnel.
Up to code.
Exactly.
OSHA would be proud.
Below the central shaft section, a room was blasted out and became a sort of resting place for track walkers and crew members and work crews. But soon enough, it also became a place for, the article said, quote, hobos to hang out, leading to the nickname of the Hoosac Tunnel and other times the Hoosac Hilton. There was also something down there called hobo graffiti, which is a sort of language used by those who travel around. So it's a
Oh.
language that they all kind of developed.
Okay.
And they would write it in these places that were known for people to stay in.
Yeah.
And no one else knew what it was, just
Right.
the people who traveled around like this. And they would be able to read all of the different like things that people were talking about.
That was in a Criminal Minds episode.
Really? Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
their own language.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
That
it
was-
like symbolized to other people, like it was like about the area.
Yeah.
kind
If
of
it was
thing.
like a safe area, what they could
Yes.
expect there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was down in like the Hoosac Tunnel.
Mhm.
Hoosac Tunnel. But this hotel that's down there, the nicknamed Hoosac Hotel,
Mm-hmm.
it is said that it had a very creepy vibe to it, which would make sense as this is a spot where the tunnel had once collapsed, killing a lot of workers. Others say that it is the spot where Brinkman and Nash had died. So it could be like this just not great spot.
Epicenter.
Yes. There is also a legendary secret room nearby, which is apparently walled up to contain some awful horrors, things so bad that it had to be sealed up. Nothing else about this secret room.
That's fine. We don't need to go into it.
No. The room, like the main room, the hotel part room, is also just creepy in general. With
So it's like an actual room.
yeah, it was made for, it wasn't like made for people who would travel like this.
Mm-hmm.
It was made for the workers to have like a kind of room to chill out in when they weren't doing their work, or like
Okay.
just kind of
So
like,
a
like an
lounge?
office. Yeah, like a lounge office kind of
Okay.
place. So in this room, people would find an old wooden desk and chair inside with some archaic communication and control equipment. So that's still left in the room. But of course, urban legends told of bodies wrapped in black trash bags being found in the creepy room. There was a story about 4 ghost hunters, 2 men and 2 women. They approached the tunnel during the day one winter. They said they got chills from the bad vibes.
It's winter.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Winter in Massachusetts.
Right.
Like, it's cold up there.
I'm going to be a bit chilly myself.
Right. So the 2 men entered. They eventually entered the west portal and walked several dozen feet into the tunnel before they turned around and sprinted back to the other 2. They said they heard the sounds of, quote, body bags falling from the ceiling. Which, like, how in the world do you know what this sounds like?
Yes, very specific body bags.
Yes.
Not just like large bags.
Right. But it does go along with the whole urban legend that, like, these body bags were found in there. So the tunnel gives off creepy vibes to those who come visit. Some who have visited have reported hearing the clangs of picks and unnerving laughter. Sometimes people hear the sound of an explosion that killed those 13 workers all those years ago. People have reported everything from uneasy feelings to nausea.
I am uneasy and nauseous.
People have seen apparitions and have heard eerie screams and whispers in the dark. Footsteps are heard coming from empty areas, and others have heard rubble moving in other rooms. There has also been reports of a sudden darkness descending in the tunnel, even when visitors are near the entrance and should be able to see light from outside of the tunnel.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Spook lights are seen, which are those random lights that really have like no known cause. Ghost hands have also been known to push people in front of moving trains and also pull them back out of harm's way. Yeah.
Oh, well, goddamn.
So you might get pushed in front of a train, you might get pulled back. And while this may seem like fun and exciting, everyone should be warned to not go visit. First off, it is private railroad property. Poking around and exploring is considered trespassing, and this railroad is still operational, so freight trains are still passing through, and that can be very dangerous. Some parts of the train, like some parts of the tunnel, there's no side.
yeah.
So if a train is coming by, like,
There's
no room for you.
Yeah.
Right. It's also pitch black in there, so it's very easy to get disoriented and turned around.
Because it's a tunnel.
So making it very difficult to know which direction you came from and which direction you need to go to get out. Though it may seem long forgotten and desolate, it is actually the most active railroad tunnel east of the Rocky Mountains. So it's like a very used tunnel.
That's like a lot.
Yeah.
Like the Rocky. I thought you were gonna say Mississippi.
I know. Yeah, no, that's why I like stumbled a little bit, but it's the Rocky Mountains.
Oh, goddamn.
But if you really want to know about this tunnel, there is a free museum that had at one point been a railroad yard. It is now dedicated to the Hoosac Tunnel in the railroad industry. So you can get your railroad fill here.
I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is the tunnel truly haunted by past workers?
Sounds like it.
Or is it always meant to be haunted? The Mohawk Indians are the ones who gave the mountain that the tunnel goes through its name. In their language, Hoosac Mountain means the Forbidden Mountain. So this tunnel is essentially the Forbidden Tunnel.
How many times do we have stories like this where someone builds something and then you find out that the Native Americans are like, that place is like
Not good.
Not good. You shouldn't go there. And then we go there anyway. And then what happens? It's not good.
But the Forbidden Mountain name only came from one article. Apparently, Hoosac means place of rocks. So, is it really haunted? I mean, come on.
Forbidden place, place of rocks. Both are probable.
I'm going to hit you with some H's.
Okay.
But either way, the horrors and hauntings of the Hoosac Tunnel should remain hidden.
Beautiful. That's great.
So those are the Hoosac Tunnels of Massachusetts.
Well, we're not going there.
No. No, no. No, no.
Not in a box, not with a fox.
Not in socks, not eating locks.
Not on a train.
Wearing polka dots.
Not in the rain. I will not do it, Sam I am. I will not go to the tunnel.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go to this tunnel either. There's like too many things, and there are too many things that sound bad.
Yeah.
Like there's only like 2 good stories where this guy was like, oh, it saved me twice. But like it saved you, but then you didn't go visit and then your wife passed away. Like that's really sad.
Yeah. I would definitely latch on to that causation for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
but yeah, man, crazy tunnels.
yeah.
I asked Joe if he knew about these. I was like, oh, do you know about the Hoosac Tunnel? And he goes, no. And I was like, okay, do you know about the Hoosac Mountains? And he goes, no.
Massachusetts is not a big state.
It's kind of big. I mean, not nearly as big as Virginia.
It makes more sense for you and I not to know a town in Virginia than it is for him not to know something in Massachusetts.
Valid, yeah. But yeah, so no, he didn't know what this place was. And I was like, well.
It's not a good Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Well, I don't know what they're called.
I don't either. Massholes.
I don't think so.
No, but that's what people call them. I mean, that's not the like official name.
Well, it's the same way we call Manassas Manasshole.
I have never called it that once.
Oh, my friend does all the time because she's from there. So,
oh my gosh, speaking of Manassas and Worcester, when we went up there most recently, his uncle took us to this place. It's called like Blackstone something or other, but all of their menu is flights.
No.
So you get a flight of like egg rolls and a flight of French fries and a flight of tacos. Like,
that's so cool.
it was the most incredible place I've ever been. And I was like, oh my God, I love everything about this. I got a latte flight, like incredible.
I was latte flight.
I was real hungover that day, so I couldn't do alcohol. But I was like, coffee like will bring me what I need because I had gone to a wedding the day before. But yeah, it was a really, really cool place up in Worcester. And I was like, this needs to expand down to DC. Do you know what a place like that will do in DC?
Oh, neato, mosquito.
That's very fitting here because Mackenzie has a gnat in her house.
His name's Albert.
That keeps flying by me. And I almost tried to like kill it earlier today. And Mackenzie goes, that's Albert. I didn't kill him.
Okay, look. We run a spooky podcast, so I feel like no one can judge me for this. In sophomore year of college, in my apartment, there was a gnat. And as far as I could tell, this gnat was there for quite longer than one would expect of a lifespan of a gnat.
Your sophomore year in college was almost 10 years ago. Doesn't that sound awful? I know I really don't like it. I just had to share it with you because the thought popped into my head, so I had to share the thought with someone else. Go on with your gnat story, though.
Well, that's just depressing. So I really thought that this was the same gnat. I knew it kind of maybe wasn't, but I'm like, this gnat is always here. So I named him Albert. And he stayed with me for most of sophomore year. And then all of a sudden the other day, there's this gnat hanging around.
Yeah.
And it's just always showing up. And I was like, I think Albert's back.
Roy chomped at it a few times, but never got it.
And so I came up with, instead of like a vampire turning into a bat, the ghost Albert turns into a gnat.
And we love him.
We do.
And no matter how many times he buzzes by my face, I don't swat him.
Well, I was going to say, he doesn't buzz by me very often.
Because he's like, I'm not going to annoy the person who gives me my house and who kept my sweater.
Yeah.
The sweater that is still hanging on one of your doors.
I'm too afraid to get rid of it now.
When you move,
it's going to stay here.
It's just going to stay right there.
It's going to stay right there.
I think that's very smart.
I'm not taking it with me.
No.
Mm-mm.
No. All right, Mackenzie, what do you have for us tonight? Or I guess early in the morning.
Well,
because it is now 12:30. This is what y'all get when we do a wine episode.
Yeah. So, I am excited to share with you.
I am excited.
I'm excited to share with you an authentic Boston mob case from the 1960s that is still technically unsolved to this day.
Because would it be Boston if we didn't talk about the mob?
This story has all the greats: witnesses disappearing, families being threatened, and funny nicknames like Jimmy the Bear.
Oh, we both had a Jimmy in our story.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this and it's a time when you are allowed to have alcohol and you're of age, every time I say a nickname for one of these mobsters, you should take a drink, Lauren.
I'm gonna die.
You'll be fine. At first, I was feeling very frustrated because I felt like I could not find anything consistent about this story, both even back then and now. It was like an awful game of telephone. However, I found a gem of YouTube video made by a much older man who definitely is from Massachusetts.
No.
And he has an adorable accent. And it's just so wonderful to listen to him talk.
Yeah, I will admit it was kind of wonderful.
I don't know if he's a journalist. I don't know if he's a lawyer. I don't even know his name. I think
Just a sweet old man.
what was great about it is that it kind of plugged in some of the holes. And we will discover later that it was no accident that the media was putting out all kinds of information during this time. So, on the evening of August 14th, 1962, mail truck driver Patrick Sheena and his guard William F. Barrett were traveling from Cape Cod to Boston Federal Reserve to deposit $1.5 million, which is over $15 million today, dollars.
Thank you. And none of you could see it, but the hand motions. Mackenzie did like the hands together and dollars.
Okay. In small bills from various banks on the island. They were driving along Route 3 when a sedan-type car went zooming past them, going 80 miles an hour. As the truck continued down the road, they came upon a cop car where two police officers were waving the truck to pull over. Patrick complied and pulled the truck over to the side of the road. The police officers were carrying machine guns and two more men jumped out of the car.
Oh, no.
They forced the men to open the doors of the truck and proceeded to tie up the driver and the guard.
Oh, my God.
They brought the two men into the back of the truck and drove away. They made several stops.
So they put them in the back of the mail truck.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
They made several stops and dropped off various bags of cash at different locations, which is why later on they couldn't tell them where they went because they made so many stops and they were tied up, so they had no idea.
Yeah.
But eventually,
it's like no matter how well you know your town, if several stops are being taken, you're not going to know.
Correct. Eventually, the thieves drove about 25 miles to the Randolph-Quincy line before abandoning the truck and its occupants unharmed.
Okay.
The postal worker and the guard were finally able to get themselves free and obviously called the police. By the time the police arrived, the robbers were long gone.
Yeah.
Plymouth is a small town right outside the bridge. So if you're coming from Cape Cod, right after you get off the bridge, like coming into the mainland, I guess, is Plymouth.
Okay.
So that's kind of, where it is. They couldn't find any fingerprints, but police had determined that there were actually 6 individuals that may have been involved. 4 of the men who pulled over the truck, but then there was also 2 additional ones who were further down the highway pretending to be construction workers who were redirecting traffic away from the robbery. So nobody saw it happen.
And also, if you're like disguising yourself as police officers, like why wouldn't people comply with you?
Well, so that's why the truck pulled over. But
Right,
then
exactly.
further down so that no cars would pass while the robbery was happening, 2 other people
Yeah.
directed, and they were like just construction workers.
Oh, and again,
Yeah.
how many times have you gone around?
Exactly.
I can't tell you how many construction workers I have had to deal with in the past couple days. But yeah, they tell you, oh, slow with their little
Right,
sign, and
yep,
you slow down,
mhm.
and they tell you stop, and you don't go until they tell you can go. Like, you just don't question it.
And one of the articles that I read, they had asked someone who was there, and he said that he even remembered like driving obviously in that direction and finding it odd that there was so much traffic. Like it was before rush hour was like a thing.
Oh.
And he found it odd that it was so much traffic and they were being redirected through some town before like, you know, getting off on the highway.
Right.
So, but kind of smart.
Yeah, no, absolutely
You know?
smart.
And I think that was the frustrating part. So, over 60 men from the U.S. Postal Service worked on this case. The postal investigators had a 99% conviction rate and were no joke.
That sounds like a really cool job, like a postal office investigator.
Yeah. Well, and when I heard that, I was like, okay, what kind of investigations are they really doing? 99% conviction rate?
So what investigations are they doing?
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. Well, because like obviously this
You get on my case.
This one's the 1% because remember it's unsolved.
Oh. I wonder if it's like as intense as like, you know, when people were sending stuff through the mail, like like bad chemicals and stuff through the mail.
Anthrax.
Yes, that's the word.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if that's anything that they like would have investigated or helped investigate.
I meant more so at the time.
Well, yeah, but like I wonder if like at the time too, that was one of their things.
Oh, sure.
That they
I'm
did.
sure it was. Apparently, they were the type of investigators that always wanted to have a low profile. They didn't want to be in the spotlight. However, this case would be anything but that.
Oh, absolutely.
I just found it funny that it's like a 99% conviction rate. Like they were serious. I'm like, well, this one's unsolved. So that's awkward.
So what are you trying to say?
This is the 1%.
There always has to be one.
Yeah. However, the federal government was offering $150,000, which would be $1.5 million today.
That would be nice.
In reward, plus an additional $50,000, which would be an additional $506,000 from the Postmaster General.
Jeez.
And at even one point, they didn't care if it was like they would have given you the credit even if he was dead. Like, even if the person ended up being dead.
Oh.
It's because I guess if you turn in a dead person, it doesn't count or something. I don't know. But anyone could get the reward as long as they were there.
In Harry Potter, one of the professors is dead. He teaches the history of Hogwarts as a ghost. He died while teaching and just never left. Harry Potter trivia. It's Harry Potter. You can move on.
Who?
Whoever the professor of history of magic is.
I thought that was the dwarf.
No. That's Professor Filwick, and he's the head of Ravenclaw House.
What does he teach?
I think he teaches charms. You would never see it in the movies.
Oh, it's like a book thing?
It's a book thing.
Okay. I did read the books, but I won't.
I will just truly reveal my nerdy self right here. I am a reader.
I believe you. I read the books, but I don't remember.
I don't know why I remember that one. It's just like a fun little fact. He was so boring that he died while teaching, but he just never left and just continues to teach as a ghost.
I mean, yeah, that would be on brand for Hogwarts.
Yeah.
So it's very...
Yeah, exactly.
So at the time, this was the largest cash heist in history.
Oh, wow.
However, there is a 5-year federal statute of limitations for this type of robbery.
5 years, that's it?
Mm-hmm. So they needed to find results fast.
That seems like that should not be. Like something this big, 5 years.
I think this is one of those things that like after this happened, it changed kind
probably.
of thing.
Because there's probably something they didn't think would happen.
Correct. Because
you know, like when like someone wants to run who's already been convicted of a felony, but like felons can't vote, but you can have a felon run for president. Like that's just weird.
Yeah.
Things that people don't think about before it happens.
Yeah, because, you see those signs and you're like, what had to happen so that this sign was put here?
Well, all the rules that we talk about too, like don't tie your alligator to a lamppost. It's
Or
like
a fire hydrant.
it's like what?
You can't tie your horse. You can't tie your alligator. You can't tie a dog. Like,
Yeah, it's like
you tie nothing to a fire
there was a
hydrant.
giraffe or something. It's like who's tying a giraffe?
You're right, there was a giraffe.
Right. Or why can't you kiss a man with a beard on Sundays in Oklahoma? I can't remember exactly where, but it's like what?
Someone with kissing someone with a mustache and
Which is the only person I'd be kissing.
true. Although technically, anyway,
How is that a technically?
I was gonna say beard.
He has both.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, so but then I realized that as I'm starting to think these things. So obviously, short deadline. Massachusetts flooded with cops and investigators, and they pulled out all the stops. Plus, it's the 1960s, so they're on the rules.
Right.
They're going to harass people. They're threatening people. If they even had the tiniest suspicion that you may have been a part of it, you were brought in for questioning. However, they already kind of had an idea of who probably did this. Who was the mastermind behind the heist? John Red Kelly.
Uh-huh. Oh, right. Nickname.
Okay, I'll do it with you.
Thank you. And also Kelly from like the last name of Mikey's too.
So John Red Kelly and his crew would have had the means and the skills to pull this off. So a lot of information moving forward is from Vincent Fat Vinny Teresa, who was a Boston mobster who served as a lieutenant of Raymond Ellis Patriarca.
Was that like a person?
Yeah, it's like how like in that time there was like the families or whatever. I think he was one of them.
So he served as a lieutenant?
Fat Vinny served as a lieutenant for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a cop lieutenant? Or just like that was like his title in the family? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm on
Not everybody who's in the family is in the family.
Right.
Yeah.
But like you can be working for the family.
Correct.
Okay.
So he was probably like not like a second-hand man, but, not far down.
Yep.
But anyway, so Fat Vinny claimed in his book, My Life in the Mafia, that Red Kelly was the man who planned the robbery. None of this information, as far as I know, has been officially confirmed because remember, case still unsolved. However, we're going to go with this one. The rumor was that Kelly was going to allegedly receive a generous 80 cents on the dollar when the money was laundered, which apparently is like big deal.
That's a lot.
Because, it's like, what, 80%?
Yeah.
But apparently what they typically did was that the people who did the heisting got 60 and the people who did the laundering got 40.
Wow.
So this was like huge that he was getting 80% cut. He was the kind of guy that kept things very close to the vest. Wouldn't spend money on flashy things. He only bought one new pair of shoes a year. However, Lauren and I decided that his wife's allowance of $75 a week, which today would be $759 a week, is not
flashy.
Yeah.
Not flashy.
Not flashy. It's pretty flashy.
Because, like, I want that. Like, give me $700 a week.
100%. Yeah. So, but okay.
You do you, sir.
Right. He was also known to have already committed multiple robberies, and he'd always hid his money away in bathroom walls.
Why?
He was very paranoid.
That is so weird.
So because investigators were convinced that Kelly was the mastermind behind the heist, they set their sights on him and anyone who may have been associated with him. The postal inspector supposedly even threatened Kelly's wife. Kelly responded by telling them that if they ever did that again, then he would come up behind them and kill them. And he might even make their families watch.
Oh my God.
So then the postal inspectors responded by then pulling Kelly over when he was in his car. They dragged him out and they told him that if they found a gun, they would stick it so far up his ass, all the way up to their elbows, and then pull the trigger.
Oh my God.
Great. They also tore apart his home, hoping to find something. Obviously, no such luck.
Right.
Federal agents even went to Kelly's wife's apartment. So apparently 2 different because he was like, oh, this is probably going to happen. So you're going to be this one. This is going to be mine. And that's going to be yours. But they're going to think that that's mine. But it's not because this one's mine.
Right.
So when the feds came and said, hey, your husband is this criminal mastermind behind this whole mail truck heist thing. She laughed and she said that he couldn't mastermind his way out of a paper bag. It's just so funny. So supposedly, the postal inspectors illegally entered her home, assaulted her by grabbing her arm and not letting her get to the phone. When she was finally able to call her husband to tell him to come home, Kelly immediately rushed over to confront the postal inspectors. Once he arrived, the inspectors taunted Mrs. Kelly by asking her if she wanted the reward money for bringing in the mail truck robber. Because their husband came. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That was kind of fucked.
Yeah.
So Kelly ended up filing a civil suit against them. However, it didn't really go anywhere, but it did get them to back off.
Okay.
So according to some reports, investigators might have been able to uncover some evidence. They definitely had eyewitnesses. However, it's the mob.
Mm-hmm.
So in retaliation, while our mystery Massachusetts man calls them the Hoods, which is just...
That's just so, pure.
It's so great. I had to, listen to it a couple times to make sure that that's what he was saying.
Oh.
AKA members of a mob, gang, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
They would send death threats to investigators and their families. They made false accusations.
That would be so scary.
Oh, absolutely.
Getting these death threats and stuff for, doing your job, but now you're going up against the mob. So scary.
And the thing is based on, especially what this guy has said, the newspaper articles, even the current articles, it's really hard to tell who is the bad guy here.
Yeah.
Did the feds have a vendetta against this guy and target him? And so in retaliation, he got back at them?
Mm-hmm.
Or did he really do it and he's just your typical mob asshole who's, trying to scare people so that he doesn't get in trouble?
Right.
50-50. So they also made false accusations and even turned the media against the feds. Hence why it was very difficult to find consistent information.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So 60 days before the statute of limitations was up,
Oh my gosh.
federal grand jury indicted 3 people believed to be a part of the robbery. Red Kelly, Thomas Richards, and Patricia Diaferio were the only people who ever went to trial for the heist. Kind of. So witnesses said that they apparently saw a very pretty blonde, large busted woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they called me in high school.
Oh my God.
That apparently was being some sort of lookout on an overpass over the highway. And supposedly Patricia was this person. She was very pretty and she was blonde. Well, but you can just tell what's written by men.
Yep.
Because whenever it comes to a girl, the first thing they always say is that she's attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, I'd be like, oh, she was wearing this color shirt, this color pants, this is how her hair was. Commenting on the things that need to be commented on, not, oh, she was pretty.
Unfortunately, though, because of it being 1960, the only thing I knew about her was that she was a mother of 4. And she's pretty.
Because that's all women are at the time, is they're pretty and they're moms.
As far as I could tell, no ties to the mob. But like I said, there really wasn't much on her. She was just mentioned. So some guy whose name I think is Agastelli.
Ooh, Agastelli sounds good.
Anyway, we're going to call him Aggie because that's what he
Okay.
went by, so it's fine. He was also arrested in relation to the robbery. Tommy Richards was a regular in Kelly's crew. But it was rumored that he might cave and testify against the others. Kelly was being represented by the infamous defense attorney F. Lee Bailey. Who is this, you ask?
Yeah, I do.
Bailey was also the defense lawyer for O.J. Simpson.
Oh.
And whatever that guy's name is that went to trial for being the Boston Strangler,
Mm-hmm.
he was his attorney. And he
Wow.
didn't get convicted.
Did
And obviously,
not.
the guy, it's Angelo something or other.
I know the Boston Strangler, but I can't think the name.
I'm pretty sure he got him and obviously OJ off.
Obviously, OJ.
Yeah. So what's interesting, though, is that when you look up this guy, this is not on there. So Bailey told Kelly that he was concerned about Tommy testifying. And Kelly responded with, yeah, I don't think so. Tommy won't be joining us this afternoon in court.
Oh, no.
Tommy Richards disappeared in 1967, 5 days before the trial, and was never seen again.
Oh, my God.
Over the course of this investigation, 15 other suspects in the case or possible informants were murdered or disappeared within 5 years of the heist.
Stop.
Yeah, we're going to go through some of them.
Oh, my God.
So, because I was trying to keep track of Mr. Michigan, Massachusetts man, sometimes it was hard for me to catch why he started telling a story about something.
Mm-hmm.
So some of this information is going to be a little choppy, but,
Okay.
you know. Apparently, it was rumored that this guy, Morris Lerner, had shot Tommy in the head after they knew he was going to testify. But supposedly before he had shot him in the head, Tommy obviously begged for his life, saying, "I've never done anything to hurt you guys. Yous guys." And this was true. Tommy had always been loyal. But Kelly didn't think he would hold up to the pressure of the trial. So they killed him. Whether or not he was actually going to turn state's evidence is irrelevant.
Jeez.
So this Aki guy, who apparently was the original planner, but like he sucked at doing this, was the one who brought Kelly in to help to make sure that it didn't get fucked up. But he hadn't gotten his cut yet. Apparently he might have like had a heart attack when the heist was supposed to happen, so he didn't actually participate.
Oh my God.
But he did get arrested. But Kelly had no intention of sharing that money.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert Rasmussen,
Yeah, we were
Possible
talking about this. There's
relative,
my Rasmussen, Terry Rasmussen from our New Hampshire episode.
could be like a great uncle or great grandfather.
Somehow related, especially because New Hampshire is not very far from Massachusetts.
Well, anyway, hopefully Rasmussen already, passed along his genes, because he also had information about Kelly, and he was found severely beaten and shot to death wearing only his underwear, black socks, and a tie.
Oh.
So if he didn't get a chance to pass on his genes, they're not related unless he had like a brother. He had been beaten so badly that investigators could barely tell who it was. And one of the, I don't know if it was an article, it said like it took them 6 hours, which I guess
6 hours to identify him? That doesn't seem like a very long time.
I didn't think so either, but I guess given the time frame and forensics, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like 6 hours is like a pretty short amount of time to be able to identify someone.
And when I was hearing it too, and they were saying that he was so badly beaten that they couldn't investigate, I'm like, they're not going to do dental records. They don't have any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the fact that they still got it in 6 hours, I'm like,
that's like pretty
seems
impressive.
pretty good.
That should be a brag, not
Right.
a like, oh no.
I don't know. I think the point being that he was badly beaten.
Yeah, I think that's the main point of the part.
He had just gotten out of prison 2 months earlier for robbery, and it was the 16th murder in the first 10 months of 1965.
Wow.
We'll get into that a little bit too later. Harry Reddington, who was a loan shark and suspected of laundering some of the heist money, was found shot to death with 4 bullets. His death also could have possibly been a part of the Boston Irish mob wars of the mid-1960s.
Oh my God.
A lot of the newspapers I read were like, so this person might be involved with this, but it could also be the mob wars. Could also be, there was a lot of people that died, basically.
Oh no.
Oh, it was bad. Francis Frankie Benjamin.
Oh, damn.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Who was suspected of having a role in the heist, was also murdered, but not because he was involved. Vincent Jimmy the Bear Flemmy.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sip like that. Was the brother of a big shot mobster, Steve Flemmy, and a cold-blooded killer. So Jimmy the Bear and Frankie Benjamin had been cellmates in jail, and they both got out at the same time. They're pals. No one really knows the real reason, but what we do know is the two men were at a bar and they were drinking, and they got into an argument.
With each other?
Mm-hmm. And Jimmy put a bullet in Frankie's head, but the gun that he had used had been stolen from a cop. Jimmy cut off Frankie's head so that there was no ballistic evidence.
Oh my God.
Jimmy was eventually caught for the crime and sentenced to life in prison.
Jesus.
Our friend Red was thrilled because now it saved him the trouble of having to do it himself. Leo Lowry, who was a professional B&E artist, was found shot to death with his throat slit on his farm.
A professional what artist?
B&D, breaking and entering.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what the guy said in the video.
I see.
I thought it was also odd that he called him an artist, but I didn't know what else to put.
Okay.
B&E criminal? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be like, oh, he's really good at breaking into things is the idea.
Yeah, but still interesting.
Definitely an odd title. No one knows why, but they obviously suspected that he was involved in the heist, or he may have been turning to be an informant. Russell Nicholson was shot in the back of the head and found in the woods. No criminal record, but he was known to be friendly with the mob. In fact, he was forced off the police department when he was suspected of being involved in the robbery because he was a policeman. And it's rumored that he could have maybe have been one of the cops that pulled over the truck that people assumed were fake. It could have just been his actual uniform. Kelly was having so many people killed or killing them himself that mob bosses told their people that if they came across him to not mention any robberies. Like, don't even. He would brag about pulling off the robbery, but as he told people what happened, he would stop to see if anyone would say like, oh yeah, I heard blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, he wants to see what people know about it.
No matter what investigators threw at him, Kelly never caved. He did go to trial. The prosecutor's main tactic was eyewitness accounts. Francis Kissel, who was a U.S. assistant attorney, had seen Kelly standing in front of the mail truck as she was driving home, or she was driving to her vacation home. She became a witness for the prosecution, but Kelly's attorney tore her statement apart in court. She later said that she had seen the newspaper reports about all the other people who had given statements had either turned up dead or missing, so she messed up the testimony on purpose. William Fitzgerald, who was a civil service investigator, had seen Kelly driving the truck down Route 3, but he didn't come forward for 2 years.
Wow.
One newspaper reported that the judge for the trial had told the jury to consider the reliability of the witnesses. He wanted them to take into consideration the witnesses' power of observation,
Oh my God.
memories, ability to express themselves, and their awareness of the effect of their testimony on the case and their motivation.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, that is a very good defense.
It was just odd that the judge was saying this to the jury.
Right. That's
That
not
was-
something that a
yeah.
judge typically says.
So he actually is quoted saying, "You have been told by the government that these were disinterested witnesses. Do you really believe they were disinterested witnesses? Many of them knew there were rewards of up to $150,000 offered for the solution of this case. Is that not a situation in which motive must be weighed?" So Kelly and Patricia were ultimately acquitted by the jury. The trial and the investigation cost 4 times as much as the initial robbery.
Oh my God.
Which, like, at that point,
It's not even worth doing it.
no. Eventually, the statute of limitations ran out both federally and within the state of Massachusetts. And the Great Plymouth Mail Truck robbery is still unsolved to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was watching this movie last night. This relates. And it was in the city, and there was like this mob like family or whatever, and they're like a crime family, and the cop catches like the main guy and brings him to jail, and he has all this evidence. He's like confessing to his murders, and he still gets released, and she's like, why is he being released? But it's because all the cops are like on the mob, like this like crime family side. And so it's kind of like this, where it's like the crime family, like it's, you have a feeling, it's a very strong feeling that it's them, but they're just going to keep getting
It's all
off.
jerry-rigged.
Uh-huh.
Later on, this is like some of the stuff I kept out because it wasn't specifically relevant to this. It was just kind of more relevant to Kelly and how his life turned out. So there's also another famous robbery in Massachusetts that happened in the late 60s. And it was the Brink armored truck robbery.
Oh.
I think it was like one of the first, like one of those. But even this still took more money than that one. But anyway, Kelly was involved. And the guy who fronted this operation was smart. The inside man only had contact with Kelly. So when he would eventually turn, the only finger he could point to was Kelly, not this other guy. But of course, Kelly is like, well, I don't want to fucking get in trouble. And so he starts blabbing. And, you know, he's talking about, well, yeah, I might have had a part in this and part in that. But prosecutors are like, unless you can give us a big cojones. So that's when he gives the patriarch guy.
That's how I remember it too.
Yeah. Patriarch guy. And he says that he like planned this murder of these like 2 cuckoo brothers. And he was a part of it and turned him in. But then really Kelly was, I guess, committing perjury. So everybody else got off. He was put into witness protection. But then apparently he had dementia. And he was afraid of flying. So the fucking marshals had to drive his ass back and forth from New England to the Midwest because he refused to fly. But because he was starting to get dementia, like, he really wasn't a witness.
Right. He wasn't credible, at least.
But he started to spin a tale. The CIA had tried to recruit or hire or whatever.
Another CIA recruit, apparently.
To him to kill Fidel Castro.
Oh.
Yeah. Which...
Do we know if that really happened?
So, okay. So the guy, like, at the end of it, obviously nobody believed him.
Right.
But given what we know about the CIA now, the guy's opinion was that it didn't seem too far-fetched to him to hire a mobster to kill a communist leader. Like, CIA would do that.
I mean...
But yeah, no, he ended up in fucking witness protection. So even though he was killing all those people who could possibly have ratted on him, he then turned around and was a rat himself.
Mm-hmm.
And
then a protected rat.
Mm-hmm. And so for a while he was going back and forth from the Midwest, but apparently he ended up in freaking Cambridge.
Okay.
Like, that's not witness protection.
No.
But
not where you can, like, run into someone getting milk.
Most of these people are dead now. They all died, like, the early 2000s. Natural causes, mostly.
Wow.
So this is, like, mob. Like,
yeah.
Big mob. One guy, the guy who fronted the Brink armored car, he knew he was going to get caught. Like, they knew there was a warrant out for him. So he flees to Chicago, completely changes his name. Literally whole new family. Wife has no idea. Opens a fucking toy shop in Chicago. And up until 1974, I think the heist happened in like 68, 69. He got away with it until 1974, and then he died in jail.
Wow.
Yeah. Mystery Massachusetts man, lot of information on the mob. In fact, he said at one point that, like, I guess Kelly was obsessed with cats, and he had 2 cats. It's like a whole thing that I didn't really quite understand, which is why I didn't include it. But in the video, he goes, yeah, these guys were weird. And he was like, I grew up with some of these guys, and I thought they were weird then, so you can imagine what their childhood was like. I'm like, yes, sir. So, yeah.
It was probably definitely the mob.
From what it sounded like, yeah. And at first, you know, I couldn't tell. I'm like, oh, are they just saying it's the mob to say it's the mob?
Right.
Are they just trying to get anybody to be charged for this because of the statute of limitations? It's hard to tell.
But then it's like they went to all these places and dropped off money, which makes it feel like
money's never been found.
Right. It makes it feel like it was this big thing.
And one article I was reading, this was the 3rd week that they had done this. This was not the first time.
Oh.
And the reason why the post office was doing this was because they were cheaper than getting an armored car.
Right.
And they had just had the mail truck driver and the guard. And that had been fine for like the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
So there was also an idea that it was an inside job.
Oh. What do you think?
I definitely think it had to have been an inside job, because how the hell else would they know that this was going to become a thing, that the banks in Cape Cod wanted to get their money to the Federal Reserve, and instead of getting an armored truck, they want to save money and get the postal one. How did they know that that was going to happen? How did they know that that was going to be a thing? Even if they sat and watched them and figured out the routine and the schedule, someone still had to tell them that this was going to be going on.
Right.
Who fucking told them?
Interesting. That was a good one.
Thank you.
We do like our Unsolved. That one was a good one.
This is nice. People died.
A lot of people died.
But as far as I could tell, they might not have been very good people. I don't think any bad people were harmed in the making of this story.
So it's not like the bloody pit I talked about, where just like 200 people died.
Yeah, like the postal truck driver and the guard, they weren't killed or anything.
Yeah, exactly. When you said that, I was like, oh, okay.
The guy in the video, he's like, yeah, this is a clean job. I'm like, all right.
Yes, it was.
He sounds like he could have easily been like a Boston cop, I swear. Or like in the mob himself.
Older Boston people sound like that.
Oh my God.
Well, that was a good one.
Thank you.
So thank you for listening, everyone.
God bless you if you did.
Yeah, this was one.
We're slugging. It's 1 a.m. and we're wine drunk and tired.
What a great combination.
Gonna get a good night's sleep.
Oh, yeah. So please rate and review us on everything. If you have any fun stories, please send them to ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com. And don't think any story is like too small. Mackenzie's sister recently messaged her about some wild family stuff.
Yeah.
And if you have anything like that, let us know. Like, this is fascinating.
I'm pissed she didn't tell me.
Right. Because I saw her name come up and I was like, that's Mackenzie's sister. And then I was like reading the thing that she sent and I was like, no, there's no way. Like, we would have known about this. And then I looked into it and I was like, it is her sister. So if you have any wild tales, let us know.
We would love to get a good compilation going.
Yeah, we absolutely would.
And have another listener tale.
We would.
We've done one, so go back and listen to it because it's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to have another one, we need to have enough stories. And
we're almost there.
In order to have enough stories, you have to tell us the stories.
Yeah. So don't put it off. This is your sign to do it. Do it now.
If it's like short and we need more, we'll call you and ask for more. Or email or whatever.
So thank you for listening. Stay scary.
Stay safe.